On my side, it can happen that churches turn completely and gain their own identity and do what is supposed to be done. Our leaders can as well change. It's not something permanent. The only thing that is affecting the country is greed, personal greed. You feel like you need to have everything. Okay, we say that as a human being, even the Bible, it speaks that way, that whatever you think of, what you say and what you do should be the same. Whatever you think of, what you say and what you do should be the same. To be honest, yes, we've seen leaders in the country that have been serving the church strongly. And they have been to politics. Almost 100% have gone against their values as church leaders.
Which they believed initially.
Yeah, which they believed initially. To me, I think I take it because if it's corruption, they embrace it. If it is the issue of killings, they embrace it.
They embrace it.
They develop this kind of a heart that is so cruel, a heart that should not be of someone who has gone through a process of Christianity. Therefore, I say that this comes to an individual level. The norm of the day should be that when someone leaves the church, should replicate the same in leadership. But they go against it.
Get the point. Take a step forward.
The church and politics and politicians and Christians. Those in church are known as Christians. Those in politics are politicians. The two find it difficult to match their interests in fitting the world's need. Here is Get the Point. We are having a wonderful discussion today with our guest, Obed Mokoro, who is here in the studio to tell us how does the church and politics come together and what areas today differ. Karibu sana bwana Obed.
Nashukuru.
Habari ya kushinda?
Salama kabisa.
Uko mzima kweli?
Kabisa niko sawa.
Kijoto joto ama kibaridi baridi?
Vizuri, tena niko sawa tu.
Nakumbuka kwamba tuna misimu 4 katika mambo yetu. Tuna kipupwe, msimu ule wa kibaridi baridi.
Yeah, baridi iko.
Tuna msimu ule wa kiangazi. Tuna msimu wa masika ambao unaletwa na mvua nyingi. Ile nyingine ni?
Sijui. Jua kali ama tuseme hivyo.
Sasa bwana Obed, unapata kwamba kanisa ambayo ni Wakristo, pengine depending na which branch of Christian we come from, people term themselves as Christians. And the politician, depending on which political party or independent politicians, they form politics. The two are very relevant in things that are surrounding humanity. Because politics plays much role in legislation, in oversight, in what again?
Politics does a lot.
Yeah, a lot to the humanity. But again, Christianity does much about social life, about justice,
spiritual
about redemption, and naturally about spiritual nourishment. According to you, how do the two come together?
The first thing is that in the Kenyan society, the people who are in church are the same people who are being governed by these politicians. So therefore, it sums up to being citizens of Kenya. It's a concern to both parties, church and politics. Same people who are in politics are the ones who are in the church. So you can't separate the two. Very clear.
You find in some instances whereby politicians in different political camps terming others to be Christians and terming others to be sorcerers and witchcrafts during electioneering period and hunting. To be specific, we remember President Ruto normally terms Raila Odinga to be a mganga. And Raila Odinga refers to Kenya Kwanza and Ruto as specific. You are a Christian, but why are you making people to suffer in your administration? In this point, you find out that as a Christian, there's a way you must amonafaku behave. And a politician, they have their norm of behaving like politicians. Don't you see that they don't really be in church? Can you be two in one?
You can be in politics
Mm.
and in the church.
Mhm.
In this scenario, when I look at our politicians in Kenya,
Mm.
the only thing that is different is the language.
Mhm.
The political language is there, and the
Mhm.
Christian language that exists.
Uh-huh.
When you mentioned of someone calling the other name,
Mhm.
some of these politicians, fine, it's a dirty game as they call it,
Mhm.
but I also say it's so figurative. Okay?
Yeah.
It's so figurative to define people.
Mhm.
To be specific, if it's Raila Amolo Odinga, call him Muganga.
Mhm.
That guy knows so many things that no one knows.
I'm Ganga.
Yeah. So Raila Odinga himself, he knows so many things that in politics that if you sit down and try to figure out, you can't tell.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But you see these politicians come to the church for prayers and for maybe spiritual nourishment, and they pay their tithes to church, and they support the church functions, church harambee, na wanasaidia sana kanisa. But again, you find that just recent we had the Gen Z demonstrating plus the millennials over the financial bill. After the demonstrations, the church came out and gave its voice as a church. You saw the people with the robes coming out and white clothes saying that we are behind Gen Z's, but to this extent. Going forward, they should be coming for a dialogue with the president and those in administration. And the Christians, some denominations, are sidelined. And a friend was asking, what's the role of SDS in the current demonstrations? What can you say?
Now, first of all, to begin from what you've said, to be honest, first of all, Christianity ni roho yako. The way you believe, what you think about other people, it's you knows, and your God. So therefore, these people, the politicians, whatever, even if they come to church for prayers or worship, there's a possibility, fine, they've done what is supposed to be done in church, but eventually what matters is how he thinks and what is in his mind and his heart, his soul, I mean. Now, when it comes to the political role that these leaders play, the church leaders play, I personally feel that it is their right to give their voice, because they lead congregants who give them information on how they feel, and it will be so ignorant of them if they do not fight for what their congregants feel. Now, there are privileges these church leaders experience that the normal congregants do not. Why do I say so? Because of being in leadership in the church, they have that privilege of being a leader to approach another leader to share on one or two things. So when they meet and share about anything concerning the church, for instance, the common thing we see, mchangos here and there, I don't think it's bad for them to share with the respective leaders on the challenges their congregants are experiencing. Therefore, I feel it will be so ignorant if a leader from the church ignores the cries of the congregants and then just fights for what he feels is okay with him. You brought in the issue of the SDA people. It's a fail from my side. It's a serious fail because I feel that they are failed in the sense that, when the people come to the church, and they have bestowed you the trust by God, has bestowed you the role of leading these people. Them themselves, they have trusted you. When they come to your place, they have so many problems. Some of these problems are solved by politicians. They are just been guided by God or by the Holy Spirit to come and present them to you, for you to use your wisdom and the powers you have from God to use also such kind of decision making tools to come up with a solution that will help these congregants. And one of the solutions I believe personally that a church leader should have is the ability to approach, if it's a leader of a certain region, and tell them, your people do not have school fees. They have come from home to come and I pray for them to get school fees. But I know you guys have bursaries, you can give these people. So as a result,
about how the church, how politicians helped the church. But remember the mission of the church when you read about Matthew 25, talking about helping humanity. I was hungry, you never fed me. I was sick, you came to the hospital and saw me. I was sick, you never came and saw me. So the church is giving this still to human beings, that if one is sick, you need to visit him as a church and pray, maybe sing some songs, shame. Someone is in need, you need to support as a church. Maybe by free will offerings, you need to see the orphans, the widows, and those many in the society that we have. You need to see the blind, the lame, those who have been injured with accidents. And this is the role of the church. But the role of politicians maybe is to come in and maybe form policies on how people should be supported so as to avoid corruption. Speaking about this, we've seen many people and Kenyans point out to corruption being spread in the church. Politician A goes to office. Net worth, we know it was down 2 or 3 years down the line. The politician is rich. His net worth has improved. Is able to give millions in a fundraising. You see, they come from politicians who majority believe don't get this money in genuine ways. And they bring them back to the church. And the church prays for politicians. You're doing this, you're doing that. Don't you see that a regulation should be there so as to avoid injustices and corruption? Having politicians being separated totally from the church.
Now, to first finish the first point that you asked about the SDA, therefore it is wrong for SDA to segregate themselves. They should as well give their voice when it comes to the political matters in the country.
But they give their message.
I didn't see it.
To the online community.
It
was a written message.
It was a written message.
They sent.
We feel that if this communication, let it be felt by its congregants. It's not everyone that can read. We want to see them well in church. If there's for instance, in 2007, we experienced a very bad kind of a scenario in Kenya. But if you could have...
Who brought that scenario?
No, before I go who brought it, it's clear. But I want to say that if people had a chance to meet in church, and then the congregants are spoken to by their leaders, and told them, kindly, don't do this. Don't do that. If it's women, spread to your husbands. If it's to your kids, spread to your friends. Tell them that the information could have gone faster. But now there were no chances to have a church because when people were banned in churches. That was one of the things that I feel resulted to huge losses of life because the church didn't have a role to play because it was unsafe for even them. To come to your point in terms of the issue of corruption, churches, politicians bringing money that's dirty or such things. The politicians in Kenya, they have that scenario of believing that when you come to church, there are people there you're going to impress, and then these people are going to give return to you the favor by voting for you. Okay, when the election time comes. So, to be honest, yes, we need to have regulations that are going to limit this hypocrisy of leaders. Yeah, when they go steal money and bring them to the church. We also need now, this is why I say that you cannot segregate a pastor or any church leader from a political field. Why do I say so? When a politician brings money, these church leaders, because of the integrity that they should be showing, because of their wisdom and the word of God that they have internally and understand, it's good to be truthful and do best for the people because it is not right to kunyanyasa wengine. They should rise up, or they must rise up and question, Mr. President or Mr. MP, you've brought money to our church, but it is questionable because we believe within this time we're going to raise this. But if you raised, do you mind explaining to us how you raised this money to bring it to us? It wouldn't be wrong at all if that happens. Why am I saying so? We've had church leaders who have stopped politicians from speaking on the podium. It is not wrong. People have applauded it. Even politicians themselves have said, let us respect this place. That is what we need. People to take up the role seriously. But generally, the governance aspect has failed. And I believe this kind of corruption that is happening, it does not really emanate from the church, emanates from the political leaders, but thrives even in the church.
There are instances whereby some laws are about to be passed in a country. Today, I would just refer to a Bible because I'm a Christian, I believe.
I am.
The Bible has given an order. Maybe when you read about Ephesians, you read especially the New Testament, asking Christians to be obedient to the leaders or leadership of the day. And even Jesus himself demonstrated this by saying that give to Caesar what belongs to him and give to me what belongs to me. So the guidelines have been set, even by the Bible itself, on to what extent they need to obey those in leadership or authority. You found out the constitution is about to be passed. They're talking about maybe abortions. Politicians will come and say, these are reasons that should be necessary for one to do abortion. And the doctors will come and give their voice. And the Bible itself will come and give their voice. During about when we have peace, instability in a country, maybe politicians have brought the peace and stability. But the church comes again to pray for maybe to be having peace. We talk about even the demonstrations that we're talking about. The church also will come in and give its insight. So do you think that the church, by coming in to give its voice in key terms, maybe about homosexuality, so even LGBTQ issue, the church was giving its voice, those in administration were giving their voice. Now, there are things that they do which are very important to the community at large. And in that growing up setup, you find that you're born in a Christian family. You grow up in a Christian family, you go to a Christian school, maybe go to a Christian institution of higher learning. So you find out that much of your time you spent in a church denomination. And then you grow up, you want to join politics. As a politician growing from the church, we can give site examples. We had Fred Matiang'i being a church elder, Ezekiel Machogu being a church elder. We have politicians, even in parliament, who in one way or two have been leaders in the church. When they do their politics, will it be the same as someone who was not in church?
Now, what is there? Generally, they should behave. Okay, we say that as a human being, even the Bible, it speaks that way, that whatever you think of, what you say and what you do should be the same. Whatever you think of, what you say and what you do should be the same. To be honest, yes, we've seen leaders in the country that have been serving the church strongly. And they have been to politics. Almost 100% have gone against their values as church leaders.
Which they believed initially.
Yeah, which they believed initially. To me, I think I take it because if it's corruption, they embrace it. If it is the issue of killings, they embrace it.
They embrace it.
They develop this kind of a heart that is so cruel, a heart that should not be of someone who has gone through a process of Christianity. Therefore, I say that this comes to an individual level. The norm of the day should be that when someone leaves the church, should replicate the same in leadership. But they go against it. So therefore, generally, it does happen that where we find leaders go against their values. But I want to give also an example here.
But before we go there, there's this, I don't know, it's a notion, it's a belief. It said that Kenya is a Christian country. Have you heard about that?
It's a Christian country from the notion that we have leaders who are Christians.
Do you really believe, as Abel, that as Kenya, we are really a Christian country?
In fact, what I want to say, first of all, Kenya has many actual religions. You have both Christians, Muslims.
We have Protestants.
No, Protestants, yes, are Christians, but
they are Christians.
We have Hindus. Yeah. So what I just want to say is that you cannot define Kenya from the leaders we have in terms of spiritual life. It cannot work. That is completely. If it has happened, it is satirical. It's ironical. They are trying to paint it ironically that we are led by Christians. But the fact remains that Kenya, we have many denominations. And of course, what we can say is that where we are as a country, it's by the grace of God. It's by the grace of God. Because we know that there's existence of God. I believe Kenya could be worse. Because there are people who do things, they reach a point and say, no, hii nao Mungu atanichoma.
Nakumbuka kuna mwanasiasa fulani hapa Kenya alienda kanisani na alisema niko na memory verse. Musome Biblia, kitabu cha Mathayo, chapter fulani, verse fulani. Na inasema hivi. Hiyo Biblia haipo.
It is true. So therefore,
ilikumaanisha, have they mastered the art of quoting Bible verses all over and using them to fit their political ideologies?
It is true. They use every aspect to benefit themselves. But I say that should not be happening. Let's respect the podium.
So you agree with me that we need to have sanity in religious institutions so that they be respected.
That one is true.
How they should be.
It should be respected.
And politicians to do their politics outside the church.
Outside the church. The only thing I cannot agree with you, it is that you cannot separate the two in these bases. You know, I don't mean that the guys should come in the church and do their politics. I mean the church leaders. Okay? The church leaders have the right and the responsibility to face politicians and tell them, my congregants, because these people have first-hand information from their congregants, telling me the cost of living is high. You can't sit there to pray, yet God has given you the opportunity to face the person back, seated behind you, who is the president. Face him and tell him, Mr. President, these people seated here, they want you to reduce the cost of living. Initially. And this is what you can, just let me finish my point. Okay. And this is what you can do. Equally, we've had so many promiscuous, no, let me not use the word promiscuous, but some bad actions by the church leaders. We've had them, for instance, Shakahola. We've had pastors now extorting money from their congregants. We need to meet now. This is where we say the politicians should come in and speak no and tell these people, no, wait. These are my Kenyan citizens that I'm leading. This kind of acts, you are taking advantage of a podium to exploit them, to take money from them, make them poor, should stop. Are you getting this? Or this is the way it should work. So that's what I'm saying. These people merge where there's a problem to help the interest of the what? To meet the interest of the common mwananchi. Basically, that's where politics should come. But the issue of church leaders coming to sweet talk these people and here and there using Bible verses that are not there, to be honest, that one should not be happening in the church. And I stand and say that let politicians respect the church. The church is not just, well, they're in the podium, on the podium in the church building speaking. The church, actually, even the definition of it, if you look at it very well, the church is Jesus Christ, isn't it? It is us in our hearts how we take it to be. You get? So therefore, whether it's in the podium or outside, let them act according to the scriptures. While you are in power, you serve the people the right way, righteously, as the Bible provides. And then now, with regard to the Constitution of Kenya, because
I'm buying this idea that even the national anthem for a country, it's a prayer.
It's a prayer that was made by our forefathers. People who felt that this was the right thing to call it the national prayer, the national anthem. You know, it is something that is calling for
politicians use the biblical vision. Politician A says that Saul being a king. Talk about David. You've seen them call them, I'm David. I'm the little one. I'm the young one. I'm the most preferred. You've seen others use biblical illusion in doing their political schemes and planning. Now I was wondering, leadership or leaders in the church, in the church structure, are they leaders or are they politicians? How do we call them?
Are they leaders or they?
They're politicians.
Now the ones in the church.
Yeah, those, the church has a structure who is being headed by head deacon, maybe head deaconess, other deacons coming in, a pastor, a bishop, the others down here. So those leaders in the church, not leaders in politics. How do we call them?
Those ones cannot be called politicians. Why am I saying so? The people in the church, the leaders in the church, they cannot be politicians at all. For instance, we have steps by which someone follows to become a deacon, steps of becoming an elder, steps of becoming a pastor. These are leaders in the church. They cannot be called politicians.
Now, there are formulas for making leaders in the church.
Yes, there are formulas. You don't have them campaigning.
They don't campaign.
They don't campaign.
They don't go
there are
for an
certain
election.
things you achieve to become a certain leader in the church.
And then why do we have wrangles in church?
That's now greed. That's why we call it now. This is where we say that the church is not just the leaders who are in the church, the congregants seated together. It's not the building itself. Ni roho yako, your soul, the way you perceive Christianity in you. You understand? So, when you find people fighting, from the spiritual aspect, that is Satan taking over the souls of people. And when you see such things happen, they can purely be handled spiritually.
Mhm.
Because these are people who need help.
Mhm.
To an extent where someone feels like now, the best thing to do is to fight. Where does the Bible provide that? The best thing is to fight right in the church. Where does the Bible allow that? That now it's time for war in the church? It never happens that way. There's always,
in your spiritual growth, do you know that the war happened in heaven?
Yeah, where Satan, of course, was now finally ejected from there.
And others could be using it up to today
No,
to be a reason why there was in church.
No. You know one thing is we are saying here, we were given a second chance when Jesus Christ died on the cross to survive in the righteous way. And being righteous, which appears several times in the Bible, particularly in Psalms and Ephesians, the word righteous is very common. You know, when you talk about being righteous, it is simply applying wisdom and doing the right thing according to the scriptures. There's no scripture that allows fighting. Let's assume these people are continuing what happened in heaven. What ended up to become now of Satan? You know, that is not where we should be heading to. You know, Satan is now the enemy of us. He's the enemy all over. Everyone is fighting Satan. We should not allow a scenario where Christians allow emotions to come out. That's why we say wisdom comes from who? From God.
From God.
It is the responsibility of Christians to open their hearts to receive the Holy Spirit and actually the intervention of God Himself to develop the wisdom that is needed there. In a scenario where you find people fighting in the church, if these people could have applied wisdom, the best thing could have happened. Peace. Hey, are you disturbed? Let's sit and talk. What's the problem? I'll talk of that kind. But someone agitated, coming angry, annoyed, coming to fight in the church, that is not.
The church has been opened like kiosks all over, like shops. And the government of Kenya had to come in and intervene with the process of registering as a church community. Do you see that in some point of time, the government will use the church to oppress people?
Government use the church to oppress people. First of all, I want to say that everything has an end. And anything wrong usually has a bad ending. And actually an end as well will come up for it. When I see churches being opened up and down, right, left and center, I personally feel bad about it. You know why? People have taken advantage of people coming together. To give an example of the Bible, when Jesus went and found some business going on in the church, where money was involved, people were whipped and chased. If it's birds that were there, they were released out of the church.
Yeah, they were sent.
Why was that? This whole thing is diverting the role of the church. It's diverting people from what they should do where? In the church. Right now, it is a modern day times of that time when we had Jesus going to Jerusalem in a temple, finding people selling things in the church. It is now happening where the congregants themselves now, they are not taking goods, but they are giving the word in the name of, and then in return, they are giving what?
Hope.
Money. You get? Yeah, they are given the word.
They're given hope.
They are given hope.
They're sold hope.
Yes. And then now, in return, they give money. So, in short, what is there? They're exchanging money for services. And during that time when Jesus was whipping them, they were exchanging money for goods. So, in short, this is not what should be happening in the church. It should not happen at all.
But you see, money is needed to run church activities. Money is an important tool. The Bible quotes about that the love of money is the root of all evil. You know, for you to run a church, you need to use money aspect has to come there. Even God needs the tithe for you to be able to run the church effectively. And again, in politics, for you to be good in politics, to give out handouts and all over, you need money. And talking about the leadership grid and wrangles that we see in leaders, and then building it up, the government could devise how to control the church by giving it money, by giving it resources and everything, and maybe by legislating through the National Assembly. And my question was, do you see a possibility of the government uniting with the church to oppress people?
They have already united with the church. Some denominations have already united with the church, and they are right now oppressing people. I want to give you an example. when people are crying of high cost of living, then a pastor brings the president to pray for him in the church, and he goes without giving these congregants a solution of at least reducing the cost of living. What is that? What is that? But when it comes to elections, the same pastor gets the congregants to come to listen to the president, to vote for him. Even some of them campaign openly and tell the president, the congregants, to vote for him. Are you getting this? In such a scenario, already the government has worked with the churches to oppress who? The poor, the congregants. So it is very clear. Let me give you a last example here. Recently, just yesterday, the day before yesterday, I had a pastor openly saying from the church that huyu ni mtoto wetu. In Central Kenya, hawezi mguza. Such kind of, I cannot say exact words, but to paraphrase, he was passing a message, don't touch our person. You know? In Christianity, do we have our person? Do we have a Catholic of Nairobi and a Catholic of Kisii?
We don't.
We don't. We need to.
Believers.
The people who should spread a gospel of unity, the first ones are the Christians and the leaders in the church.
It's good that you bring that aspect of the podium being used in political activities. Maybe in your understanding, biblically, and up to the time of Saul, how do you think leaders were being chosen?
Biblically?
Yeah.
Okay, first of all, it's clear that leaders are chosen by God himself. It is very clear.
Yeah.
And let me tell you this. From my belief, it's not even through elections. It is through the guidance of by the Holy Spirit. And that comes out. If you bring two people together, you'll not a leader among these people. Okay? Why? It's something that comes from God himself. He gives you the leadership.
So, do you believe up to today that leadership comes from God?
Yeah, I believe that. True leaders come from God.
Do you know the last leader that God gave to people or to Christians?
Jesus himself
is the last leader.
According to me. Best leader.
Maybe talk about King Saul and how his dedication to people.
King Saul was a good leader.
And then people wanted King Saul, or they never wanted him?
Of course, at first. Then there was a change in tune.
And then from then people have wanted to demonstrate their leaders because God was giving them Saul. But you know what they never wanted? They complained to God later that the leader you gave us, we want our leader of our own. So till then, up to now, it's used that was the last leader.
Yeah, of course, yeah, that was the last leader.
And then people coming in for voting, elections, and all over, getting leaders. But there are parts of the world whereby leadership is hereditary. And we have monarch countries whereby there's no democracy, that free will. As we come to the end, the last day church, how will it get sanity back?
Okay, first of all, it is the people acting according to the scriptures. The scripture is the only guideline we have to use in our daily life and in our daily survival. In every operation, the Bible is so detailed. It's so detailed that it can guide you in every aspect of life. Every aspect of life. So what we can only say is that everyone to act according to that, this country will be great. You know? If you have a Christian who believes in the Bible truly and is the president of Kenya, for instance, corruption will not occur in this country. Because we lead by an example. First of all. Second of all, we will not tolerate friends stealing from Kenyans. Third one of all, we cannot be seeing splashing of money around. I get in this. Because right now, if a leader says we are not going to splash money here, and if you are caught splashing money here around there, you have to be answerable where you got the money from. We cannot have anyone complaining because everyone knows this is stolen money. You're getting that?
This is public embezzlement.
This is public money. So therefore, it's simply people acting according to the scriptures and also, of course, and following the rule of law. I mean, the way it was established by the people of Kenya. So on my side, it can happen that churches turn completely and gain their own identity and do what is supposed to be done. Our leaders can as well change. It's not something permanent. The only thing that is affecting the country is greed, personal greed. You feel like you need to have everything.
In the growing up of political career of President William Ruto, besides being a farmer, business person, a politician, he's said to be a Christian.
Mm-hmm.
He even served as CU in university, leader.
Mm.
In one of his quotations, he has said that after finishing with politics, he will go back to church leadership. Do you see it coming through?
It can happen. It can happen. You know, for those who are close to Moi, they say that he was very prayerful. His Bible was always by his side. And actually, I was listening to once interviewed Farike. He was telling me that when Moi died, the song he wanted most, it was a song that he sang, which was a hymn, and that was a gospel song. People can turn, of course. People can turn. But what we always told is that let's be ready. Let's be ready always. You can't do bad things and then wait. Once you don't have the powers anymore, now you start turning around. It is not fair. It is not. You can't make people suffer, cry, and then later on you come. You know, people think God is a dog. Ukipiga inatoroka, ukipea chakula inarudi. That is not the way you should be operating.
Imekuwa ni mazungumzo na Abel Mokoro ambaye ameweza kutiririka hapa kwa Get the Point Media, Get the Point Studios, your online #1 television that brings you good news through digital devices in YouTube, TikTok, and Facebook. Get the Point Media, you take a step forward. My name is Emmanuel Bosire. Until next time, when we bring such and wonderful discussions, where today we basically talked about how the church and politics relate and how they differ and how they have played key important roles in helping humanity. Our guest today was Abel Mokoro, a known and knowledgeable man about political analysis, governance, activist, and more a father. Thank you. Until next time.
Get the point. Take a step forward.